Thank you for coming and joining us for our program series Humanities at Play, which is a program of Nevada Humanities. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Kathleen Kuo, and I'm a program manager with Nevada Humanities, which is our state's affiliate and our state's council partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. So with Humanities at Play, our goal is to pair gameplay and other interactive activities with thoughtful discussions about the humanities and how they feature in and shape our everyday lives. Today, I'm super excited because we're going to be doing a live cooking demonstration and an extended conversation with our featured guest. And we really would love for our chat to feel like you're a part of this conversation as we engage in this activity. Feel like you're in our kitchen hanging out with us while Suyash and I cook. So a couple quick notes before we get started. If you're a first-time Twitch user, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us today. I encourage you to make a free account if you do not have one, and that way you can participate in chat. And also, if you're a newer user of Twitch, we have a very fun feature called a chat command, which is an exclamation point followed by a keyword. And you can see examples of these in our title as well as in the About section on our Twitch page. So today I am thrilled to have joining me on our stream Suyash Kumar Neupane. Suyash is a Ph.D. candidate in ethnomusicology with a minor in food anthropology at Indiana University Bloomington. He is interested in sensory ethnography as a tool to explore the intersections of ethnomusicology, sound studies, and food anthropology. He's also been recently engaged in exploring how 80s aesthetics and nostalgia are reimagined in the context of internet-born art forms, particularly synthwave. So, Suyash, people can't see you yet because I'm about to do the thing where I teleport downstairs. But thank you so much for joining us on our Humanities at Play stream today. For everyone in chat, I hope you're settled in and comfy. You can find our recipe that we're making today on our website, so feel free to follow along or take notes for later. I am going to switch to our kitchen streams now and run downstairs while Suyash just tells you a little bit more about himself. So Suyash, I'm gonna switch over to you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. This is Suyash Kumar Neupane. As Kathleen introduced me beautifully, I am a PhD student at IU at Indiana University. I'm really honored and so happy, like from within, because I'm going to be sharing with you one of my most favorite recipes. Um, and also, we're going to be talking about food. We're going to be talking about all the other things we have, in plan or not in plan. But I'm sure this is going to be a great conversation. So thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I see Kathleen has appeared in the kitchen.
I teleported.
Yeah.
Okay, and let me know how the sound is too, because I'm so used to streaming with a microphone, and today I'm in my kitchen, which is very new but very exciting. I love how really the humanities are everywhere at home, not just in the
Yeah.
office, but also downstairs. Hey Dom, 4K, welcome in. All right, Suyash, so we pinned the recipe, so anyone who doesn't have it can follow along. But I'm just wondering, as we get started, I'm going to pull it up. I have almost everything in front of me. So I have a red onion, a tomato, ginger and garlic.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm super sad that I don't have is mustard oil. Can you tell us more about mustard oil? And I know that you said it's totally okay if you don't
Yeah.
have it, although it breaks my heart. But why mustard oil? And can you yeah.
So thank you so much for that question. So mustard oil is, in my experience of having, been here in the US for about 5 years now, it is difficult to get mustard oil everywhere. The other important thing is it is difficult to get edible mustard oil, like food grade quality mustard oil. And mustard oil is in Nepal, in India, in my experience, particularly in northern part of India. Mustard oil is used because it is, I think, one of the go-to oils. It has a very high heat point, meaning you can cook for a long time and it heats up really well. Also important to note is that mustard oil has this particularly, kind of a spicy aroma that adds like a lot of flavor to the food. And I am aware of the fact that in a lot of cuisines, we often tend to use oils that are unflavored or that do not mask the flavor of, other ingredients. But I think mustard oil, like the use of mustard oil in Nepal, actually adds to the flavor. And mustard oil is used not only for cooking, like I said, little babies, they get massaged with mustard oil. People put mustard oil in their hair. Um, so yeah, mustard oil. I think the one place in the US that I have found without fail is Jungle Gyms in Ohio.
That's a
That's one
great place. Okay, friends
place.
in chat, have you heard of Jungle Gyms? This is an amazing place. If you've never been, you must go. Hey, Dom, can you tell us more about Jungle Gyms in chat? Yes, absolutely. All-purpose oil and Jungle Gyms, baby. So yes, I realized too. Yes, all-purpose oil. I love that. Destroy John. I don't know if I asked you to describe to people in chat, what are we making today? I realized in the recipe, you said there's Baja and Chatpate.
Yes.
So why are there two names? Can you tell us more about the meaning and significance about that?
So what we're making today is a twist on an already existing recipe. And by twist, I don't mean this is my twist. This is a sort of, I think, something that students or youths and kids in Nepal were already doing, but also there exists some sort of precedence to it. The main ingredient or the star of the show is, of course, puffed rice crisps. And these are, not sweetened or salted. They're just like on their own. It's almost like chewing on, fluffy but like crispy kind of rice. And there exists many names for this dish. Chatpate is also used as a phrase or a word to describe anything that is quick, anything that is spicy and sour and, that kind of flavor, like a perfect mix of sweet or salty and sour and spiciness. The word chatpate is also used to describe someone who is a really good conversationalist.
Oh, I love that.
So when you say that person is chatpate, you're just saying, oh, that kid is such a chatpate guy, meaning such a chatpate kid, meaning can hold a really good conversation or says funny things. Like people are enamored by a little child who goes around telling funny things, and people are, oh, that's so cute. So that's that. Bhaja is the word that was used when I was growing up in the southern part of Nepal. Bhaja was the word that I heard and not chatpate, because bhuja essentially means rice. Bhaja can also mean, rice crisps. The other word that is used is muri or murai, but for this dish, bhaja was the word that was used. I'm also aware that in eastern part of India, in Bengali, I think the word used is jhalmuri, and jhal stands for spicy. Muri is, like I said, muri, crisp rice. So that's what we're making today. I don't know how to describe it, because when I was trying to write the recipe, I looked online and I thought, should I call this a salad? Because I mean, it has all the marks of like what I would put into salad. Or should I call it marinated? Because the other word used for it is chow chow sadheko, meaning this is why noodles, instant noodles, marinated, but we're not marinating really. So I think the English translation doesn't do justice. But when you eat it, that's when you'll know that, okay, yeah, I can see this as a salad. I can see why some folks might call it marinated, but yeah, that's what we're doing today.
Well, I'm super excited. I couldn't find puff rice, but I did find some instant noodles that I'll be crushing up.
Yeah.
And you said, like, I love that this is a very customizable dish. You said, like, if people can't have rice, you could use like peanuts or chickpeas. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, for example, like I have a bunch of, for later in the evening, I'm going to make the same dish using peanuts. And I'm going to be using peanuts, and I'm going to not be using noodles and the rice, because peanuts are good in themselves. The other thing that I found that you could use is black soybeans, which are like commonly used in Nepal. The only thing you need to do is roast them up really well until they crack open and you can take the seeds out. If you're having a hard time trying to get the seeds or the cover or the husk out, you can use a bamboo thing like this, where you just put the soybeans, and you can either take this, a rolling pin, or just a glass, because there are times when I need to roll bread or dumpling wrappers and I don't have a rolling pin.
Oh
I
yeah,
just
I've definitely used the wine bottle before.
use anything to just, remove the seeds, like the cover of the soybeans. So
Okay.
it's highly customizable. I have not written it on the recipe, maybe, but you can also add cucumber if you want. Some
Oh,
folks like
awesome.
adding a radish, which again has like its own spiciness, but it's all up to you. It's
Okay.
very much customizable.
Well, Hey Dom says, what's the English version of Chatpate? Calling people a ham. I think so. I think if we're thinking about food words to call people who are silly and gregarious, that sounds perfect. I also don't even know why you call people a ham. I don't know like the etymological origins, but if you can tell me, that'd be awesome. I'm gonna pull up the recipe, Suyash. And try and follow along. So what do you usually do? Because
Yeah.
so your
So
recipes start out, your method says just combine everything, but do you have an order to when you cook? So I have,
uh,
the onion and the tomato, but do you like to chop a particular thing up first?
that's a really good question. And also thank you, Dom, for adding like what it is in English. It just reminded me that the proper translation for Chatpate person would be a chatterbox or a chat
Oh,
can.
I
So
love
if
that.
somebody's gonna open a food cart or a restaurant, chatterbox or chatpate, you heard it first.
Yeah,
but
that's the name of your food truck.
but
I
yeah,
would.
to answer Kathleen's excellent question, the first things that I want to cut is I really don't want to put the rice crisps or the noodles first and then have onions and tomatoes go on top. You know why?
Mhm.
Because that's going to make things soggy. Folks, the main goal is to make this as quickly as possible
Oh no.
and have your rice crisps still crispy. It's
Okay.
if you were in Nepal and you order a chutpate and it comes out really soggy, you could probably ask for a refund, although there does not exist that culture of a refund. But today we're going to take it slow. The first things
Okay.
we're going to prepare is onions,
Okay. I got my onion.
tomatoes. If you have a lime or a lemon, make sure to give it a nice little roll on the kitchen counter, because that way you can get the juices out.
Okay, I got my lime here. And Suyash, you might like it. I couldn't find jalapeno, but I found something better, which is serrano peppers, which I actually really love. So I'm
Yes,
going to be using serrano today in mine. Okay, I'm going to try and cut up my red onion.
adding that
And
because I like a spicier version of chutpate, so which is why I have Thai green peppers.
love it.
If folks are not used to spice, what you can do is you can cut up a little bit of the top of the peppers and roll it, and when you tap it on like a plate, all of the seeds come out, and that way it won't be
Wait,
that spicy.
wait, really? Wait, so if I roll this, wait, I'm doing this now. If I roll this,
I saw it once on like YouTube. I hope it works.
okay, so I roll it and I just tap it. I love this. Food knowledge, food
That
ways.
came out for me. Oh,
Um,
I can switch my camera angle. Wow, this is awesome. Also
I'm
for
I'm I'm scared. Okay, I'm gonna see if the
um, the-
seeds have fallen out of this serrano.
yeah, as you can see, folks, I gave it like a nice little rub between my fingers and tapped it on the floor. Like I had to chop the top part, of course. And yeah, all of the, seeds are gone. So I'm gonna switch back to the laptop.
Okay, I don't think I tapped mine hard enough, but the seeds are coming out very easy. I'm just tapping them on my counter now.
The other way is, of course, you can, slice them up, take a spoon, and take the seeds out that way.
Okay, so Suyash, as we start cooking, obviously we'll be very, very careful to not cut ourselves as we cook. But I wanted to ask you some questions, just so people can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah,
For friends in chat, so I met Suyash in graduate school at Indiana University, Bloomington, when I was there studying ethnomusicology. And
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what got you into ethnomusicology? I feel like it can be such a niche field. People are often like, what
Mhm.
is that? What it's too many syllables. What is ethnomusicology? But how did you discover it? And why did you decide to pursue this as your field of study?
Thank you for asking. I think when I was in my eighth grade, there was this advertisement that came out behind. It was on the last page of a magazine that my parents subscribed to, and the advertisement was basically um, kids who finished seventh grade can join this music school. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. But my parents were like, first, maybe finish grade 8, because after you finish grade 8, you can really take breaks and get your 10th grade or middle school done, like to your speed or whenever you want.
Mhm.
Anyways, like the application after seventh grade didn't work out for me. So I joined this school and got my diploma in music. But this was really not a school where I got to learn anything about ethnomusicology, really. It was more or less like a conservatory situation where I was learning how to perform.
Hmm.
For those who are curious, I was learning how to perform North Indian classical vocals and sitar, which is also an instrument that I play. And towards the end of my diploma, which was, I think, about 5 years later, I was really intrigued and interested in the whys, or, why do people do this? Or why do I need to do this? My professors would be like, you sing this raga, you perform this raga or this scale in the night, or that is the prescribed time for this melody. And I used to go, but why? Or why is it that the singer sits in the center and the percussionist sits on either the right or the left? Or why is there an order to things, like the whys of music? um and as I'm talking, I'm now chopping up the peppers. The seeds came out beautifully, but I left the seeds for one of the peppers because I still want the heat. So anyways, as I was getting into the whys of things, after my diploma, I came back to Nepal. Awesome. I have a steel bowl so you can't see, but when I came back to Nepal, I realized that Nepal already had an ethnomusicology program that started in 1996, courtesy of a German ethnomusicologist named Gert Matthias Wegner, who also was
Oh my
my
goodness.
for my undergrad. And I found the perfect, I think, discipline to go and ask my questions of like, why? Why do people do what they do? Or why do musicians do what they do? Why is it that people engage in music in a specific way? And those sort of questions. So that's how I got into ethnomusicology.
I love that. Just that you've always been such a curious person, and that music led you down
Yeah.
this route of learning more about other people and getting to travel and really so much more. So I noted when I was introducing Suyash that he's interested in food and sound studies, and I just learned like just so much. Just every time we chat, I'm like, whoa, really? Or like, oh, that's cool. And
Yeah.
so I think when we were chatting previously, you're telling me about gamelan and sort of the connection between. I'll let you tell the story, but can you tell us more about this
Yeah.
connection between food and sound?
So one of the things that as Kathleen introduced me, one of the things that I'm really interested in is this sort of intersection of food studies and sound studies, which is, already something that ethnomusicologists do, but I think sound scholars or sound studies people also want to take into account of the cultural subjectivity, that not everything that we label as music might be music itself. Like, you need to also pay attention to
Mhm.
sounds in, let's say, non-musical quote unquote settings. So that's what I understand sound studies to be. The thing with gamelan actually is really interesting because there's a book that came out recently. It's called Rasa, Rasa. It's by Mark Benemo. For those of you who are interested in gamelan, for those of you who are interested in Southeast Asian music or culture, and to some extent, I would say food, because when I was reading that book for my qualifying exams, I was wonderstruck by how the process of learning gamelan for Mark Benemo, for the author, was essentially the teacher saying rasa, which is a Sanskrit word for juice or essence, is the same word that was used for like the feelings or the emotions attached to music, or the kind of
Hmm.
emotions that are drawn from certain kind of sonic environments, right? um, and it was so amazing to read how Mark was instructed by his guru or his instructor, by saying, similar to how, just like how every chili pepper has its own rasa, that is how you should approach this act of making music or learning music. And I
Oh, I
mean,
love that.
yeah, that was the rasa I got from that book, or that was the essence I got from that book, or like how much ever I read it, probably just the introduction. But what I'm trying to get at is how there is already a precedence of like discussing food, and music in like around the world. There's
Mhm.
already so much going on. Like you can look at jazz where people talk about, oh, this lick is hot, or like the ways that people describe certain kinds of, or people use food allegories for music and musical allegories for food. The word we use most of the time, like chefs and musicians seem to use, is texture, which is a common word between food and music. We also like talk a lot about simple things that happen in everyday life, like let's say for a case in sound studies and food studies. If you were to open a can of Coke, if you were to open, let's say, a can. Oh, I really want to perform this. Sorry, guys. But let's say I have a can
Okay.
of Coke in my hand. This is Coca-Cola Rosalia. Apparently, Rosalia is a musician, and this is a limited edition Coke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there is again food and music studies. Somebody should do that or could do that. What if I do open a can of Coke, and that it makes that sound, that fizzy sound? What if it did not make that sound? How would you feel? Wouldn't you feel disappointed? What, my friends, would happen if you took a potato thing, a crisp or chips in your hand, and what if it did not make that crispy signature sound that we know these things make? I'm not going to show the packet because maybe copyright.
Oh,
But
it's okay.
what I'm getting at is, even in daily life, it's amazing to see how much of sound is an important part of our food experience. And that essentially is what I want to study, or what I want to look at, or what I'm interested in looking at.
I love
And
that.
yeah, that's I think getting into this detailed, and not just detailed, but also not just a serious but also a relaxed approach to both food and sound studies is what I'm really interested in.
Also, welcome in, Witness Rock. It's so great to see you. You said the good stuff. By good stuff, do you mean the is that the Coke that Suyash just opened? Is that what you're referring to?
No, no.
And Destroy John also says it would make me sad if the can didn't make me fizzy. The fizzy.
Yeah.
I don't have actually I do have Coke. I have Diet Coke. I'm gonna BRB. I'm gonna go grab a can and open it.
Yes. And
One
meanwhile,
moment.
I'm gonna explain to folks
Okay.
about some research that has been. So there's been a couple of research done, but these research are mostly like marketing based research, where or like consumer behavior based research. Charles Spence.
Also, my eyes were tearing up earlier from cutting the red
Onion.
onion.
Yeah.
Do you have a trick to not having your to not crying when you
I,
cut up onions?
I think back home, the one of the tricks would be cutting, like quartering them up like onions and dipping them in water, cold water. The other ones I've heard is like chefs talk about how this part of the onion that holds all of it together.
Hmm.
When you're chopping onions, make sure this part is intact. But by habit, I've already chopped off both sides. The fun thing to do. Also, folks, for a quicker thing, here's a demonstration of how you want to get the garlic thing done. give it a whack, that not only makes it easy for you to chop garlic, but also releases much of the good stuff. That's where the thing comes from. So
Yeah, that's what I did too.
the good stuff is a phrase that I always threw at Dom whenever I found something that intrigued me or food that really made me happy. The one good stuff that I remember was funnel cake that I had that Dom introduced me to at a state fair.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm correct, Dom, please correct me if I'm wrong. It was a funnel cake at a state fair with like powdered sugar. That was good stuff. The other good stuff was Black Forest cake, which I got to have at Jungle Gyms again, having missed them ever since leaving Nepal, because Black Forest cake is like the most popular cake of my generation in Nepal. And that is the good stuff. I hope that whatever we're making today is also good stuff for, a lot of you.
I can show you. This is well, I don't know if I can call you good stuff. So I couldn't find the Coke, but I did find a can of some seasonal Mountain Dew that I'm a little bit horrified. My boyfriend bought this. It's a Mountain Dew Summer Freeze.
Yeah.
And it's really horrifying, but just the colors. I'm gonna open it up and see if it makes the sound. Oh, I got it. It's bright
Yeah.
blue.
So there's a lot of research done how like people were made to wear headphones, and the sound coming into their headphones were actually of varied, levels of crispiness. Some were
Mm-hmm.
really dull or stale potato chips, and some were like really crispy. And there was I don't really I can't really say the efficacy of this research, but there were like reports of like how people, the satisfaction level was certainly high when the sound they were hearing actually matched their experience or their what do you call expectation of potato chip. Like for instance, again, the noodle packet, and this is YY, folks. For those of you noodle aficionados out there, YY is, of course, a Thai product. Back in the 80s, the Thai food company and Nepal collaborated to have YYs made in Nepal. So that's how, I got into YY, and this is one of the most popular things we have. But again, I'm trying to, make, you know, crumble them up. And if it doesn't make that sound, I know the noodles have gone bad. So hereafter, every time you're cooking, just be aware. And also, another answer to sensory ethnography is Tomi Ehan wrote this awesome book called Arousing Senses. It's basically not a book that you read from top to last. It's more of a workshopping kind of book where you read a chapter and you go out to the beach, you pay attention to things. And one of the things that's necessary for sensory ethnography or this kind of research or this kind of enjoyment is an abandonment of everything. Like just get into whatever you're doing. Munch it, soup it, lunch it, crunch it. That's what's written here. Just get into, like, the next time you're stir frying, pay attention to how the moisture in the veggies actually come in contact with the hot oil. And that's how you get that sizzle sound. Or like a lot of those things. But yeah,
We have a comment in chat from Dom who says, neither the soda nor the chips are making noise, and it's sad and off-putting. I apologize, Dom. Can you just imagine it in your head?
maybe put on some headphones with like high quality soda sounds. ASMR, that's another thing where people are going. The other thing people are doing with sound and food is mukbang, of course.
Mm.
Now companies have gotten into this. Oh, wow. People are really into this. Let's make or actually like manufacture microphones and speakers that can effectively reproduce the sounds. And it's awesome to see how big of a thing mukbang and all of these things are getting.
Can you tell people in chat, for those who might not know, what is mukbang?
So I think mukbang is an again internet-born phenomena that I believe, yes, definitely came out of South Korea, um, where people eat and broadcast. You also use the word food casting. And the other word that is used is skeeting, which is like eating and Skyping at the same time.
I
So,
love that.
but I know there's like another layer of meaning to that, which Dom made me aware a couple of months ago. So I'll not get into that. But mukbang is it's really cool. But I'm also very familiar that there are folks with misophonia or who have a really hard time with hearing people eat or the sounds of eating. But I think as someone who grew up in Nepal where that's the norm, for me it doesn't have like a sort of bad effect or experience. But that's mukbang. ASMR, I don't really know the full form, but it's essentially there's a lot of different genres or subgenres of ASMR, I guess. But one of them is like eating and performing. And I've heard people get into this fight on Reddit or Facebook, whatever it is, about mukbang versus ASMR, and people are like, a true mukbang is where the foodcaster or the broadcaster like on purpose makes those eating sounds as audible as possible, whereas in ASMR it's more of like a calmer approach. It's more like a relaxed approach. And I'm like, I'm not the one to judge, but both of these things exist, and I think we should enjoy it in our times.
Yeah. Well, I think well, actually, I have a quick question to you before I ask. So I have two questions in order. The first is, I have finished chopping up my red onion, cilantro, serrano pepper, garlic, and ginger, and I was going to start on my tomato. And I remember you saying that making things soggy is bad. Do you have a trick? Like, do you not use like the juicy part of the tomato? Like, what
That's
do you, or do
Yeah,
you
that's
keep
a
it
great
in?
question. So I think the tomato that I'm using is one of those huge tomatoes that I got in Kroger. In Nepal, you don't certainly get big tomatoes like here in the US. You get smaller, round kind of tomatoes and or salad tomatoes, or like you've started getting Roma tomatoes in the past 10, 15 years because like there's a lot of restaurants getting them. And I believe like Roma doesn't really get like a lot of juice when you cut it, or the salad tomatoes at least. But the tomatoes in Nepal don't have the same kind of watery or juiciness, and they're also very tart, which is something that Alpha and I are talking about today. As tomatoes here, they don't have a like sort of taste of their own. So I think if you find that tomatoes are too watery, you might possibly remove this part,
Okay.
um and just use the flesh. But yeah, like this one is so watery. This one is, yeah. So yeah, like use your discretion.
Okay.
um but also, Kathleen, the thing is, I did say that food shouldn't get soggy, but
Mm-hmm.
as long as you don't add the stuff that gets soggy, you're good. Meaning the
Okay.
rice crisps and the noodles, like those two things get soggy. Now, the one thing I want folks to do, or oh yeah, chop tomatoes, and then I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering for friends in chat, do you think, well, I
Mhm.
mean, I guess there is like a an actual answer, but maybe for you, Suyash, too. Do you think of tomatoes as a fruit or a vegetable?
Oh, that's such a great question. In Nepal, so I will have to say that we make a lot of chutneys. We make a lot of like stews and soups. But tomatoes, really eating tomatoes raw was like a novelty. The first time I saw someone do it was my aunt, who was learning to be a chef, like who went to culinary school. And I like one fine afternoon, I saw her like cutting up a tomato, sprinkling salt and pepper, and just munching on it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I've never seen anyone do it. So
A revelation.
for me, definitely a vegetable. But yeah, I think it's but tomatoes are berries. If you listen to agriculturists or horticulturists or whoever, like people who study plants, they come from berry families. And I'm like, okay, don't confuse me a lot.
I guess you kind of, I imagine if you took like a blueberry and like blew it up until it was the size of a tomato, I feel like the inside is like very similar. I can see that.
Yeah, and there's also like berry tomatoes, right? Like available here in the US. Cherry.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're like cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that this afternoon, I think Alpha is out gardening, but she's planting a few chocolate tomatoes, like the tomatoes that come like brown in color, like small brown colored tomatoes.
Yeah.
I have a couple black tomatoes that are gonna be planted today. So yeah. And the other thing I did mention early on, but folks, the lime, I do want to, I know some folks actually put the lime in the microwave for about 10 seconds or so because it brings out the juice even more. What I love doing is I love rolling it on the kitchen, like the station or cooking station or slab.
Hmm.
There's also a couple optional spices that I want to introduce folks to, which are quintessential to South Asian cooking. This one is a chaat masala. Remember the word I used? Chatpate, chaat, chatter. Chaat is another dish, and anything can be a chaat. And you can Google up. It's CHAAT or CHAT, same way how you write chat. Chaat masala is essentially things that go on top of street food. So anything that is street food always has this. I didn't write it because other than the southern part of Nepal, like I've not really seen people use it. The other spice mix that I want to introduce to people is Sichuan pepper powder.
Oh my goodness.
This one's mixed with red chili flakes, like powdered red chili flakes, and a little bit of dry garlic and black salt. Now, I know folks are familiar with Himalayan pink salt, but there is a kind of salt that comes from Nepal, from the mountains. It's called a rock salt. You also find black salt. And if you take a pinch and put it in your mouth, it tastes exactly like, guess what? It tastes exactly like egg yolks.
What?
And the one way to make vegan eggs, therefore, folks, is to chickpea batter, mix a little bit of this in the appropriate amount. Otherwise, it's gonna sting. It's gonna like smell like devil's dung, which is another name for esafotida, which is another spice. We're not getting
Yes.
into that. But yeah, these spice mixes, like Timur, which is the name for Sichuan pepper powder. This is and this is another one. This one is even more spicier, but this one is the wet kind, meaning this has oil in it, and this is the dry one. So I'm not,
Okay.
but these are optional because I understand it's really difficult to get. There's to date one Nepali online store. It's called
It's called what? Oh, oh, you typed it in chat. Okay. Malco.com. Okay.
and if folks are having a hard time finding the noodles or like the instant noodles, that is where you can find it.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can paste this into chat. We had a question for you, which is what would you consider to be your favorite vegetable?
Oh, that's a great question. Once again, my favorite vegetable is chili peppers. And again,
And
is it
any kind of chili pepper, like the spicier the better, or do you have like a favorite?
so after coming here to the US, I've really gotten fallen. It's not molko.com, folks. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
It's
all right. Yeah, I will paste it in.
yeah. So coming here to the US, I have really loved the poblano peppers because I
Hmm.
love putting cheese and then air frying it, and then it gets blisters and the cheese melts, and I can just eat it with like hot sauce. Bell peppers, not so much because in Nepal, again, I would only find green bell peppers and not like the colorful varieties we have here. But since I was a kid, I've also really loved bamboo shoots. And these are bamboo shoots that I've fermented. I came back to the US after a year-long fieldwork in Nepal on March 15. These were fermented in March 17 because I wanted to have something of taste of home. And the way I did this is you can easily find bamboo shoots at any Asian store. Wash them up, put them in a jar, add a little bit of hot water, salt, of course, again, the Sichuan pepper, and a little bit of turmeric. And that's how you ferment a quick fermentation, watery Nepali bamboo.
Oh, wait,
Also,
wait, let me show you. Speaking of, I'm so glad you reminded me. I have bamboo shoots in my fridge. Let me get them out.
yeah, folks, I'm loving your questions. Please do send them.
And then also in chat. So yeah, you blew people's minds with the egg yolk rock salt. I'll have to get back to that. I think we're gonna ask you some more, but yeah, just Joy John also loves chili peppers. Yeah, tan, totally wild. Suyash, have you had these before? Like the chili bamboo shoots that are in
Yes.
soybean oil? These are like some of my favorite things. Like again, you can find them at like a lot of like Asian groceries, but this is like it was such a treat when I was growing up. And it wasn't until like I grew up and I was an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can finally buy this on my own. So thank you so much for reminding me that I had bamboo shoots in my fridge. I just had a
Yeah.
show. John, so you said, what is your favorite food dish? Do you mean like just to cook or to eat? That's a hard question. To
That is a hard
eat.
question.
Yeah,
To
what is
cook,
your favorite food to eat, Suyash? That's the question.
favorite food to eat will definitely be, when I say food, I hope you're saying like a full-fledged, let's imagine all of us in the chat go out to a restaurant. We start with dumplings. Some of you start with chow mein or like the stir-fried noodles. We're sharing our dishes, and then the main dish, which is like the main course of like a little bit of rice, like a Nepali thali if you search online. So like a little bit of rice. One of my favorite dish to eat to this day is, like I said, bamboo shoot soup with rice, or fermented greens, which is like another thing in Nepal. We ferment. We have a lot of fermentation dishes, but fermented greens made into soups, and that's when like you really don't have a lot of vegetable options. And fermentation in Nepal came because of like bad weather or like bad crop situation, like wars or famine or like trade embargo and all of that thing. So bamboo shoots with rice or fermented greens with rice. My favorite thing to cook has to be dumplings or noodles. And
Yes.
fried rice. Recently, I've gotten into like making fried rice for folks who want to take their fried rice or noodles to the next level. May I introduce you to Lao Ganma? There's no, you know, I remember like once casually saying, "Man, I love Lao Ganma," and Wursha and my friend Patavi, both of them are like the godmother, literally the godmother, folks. If you have here, yeah, this is Lao Ganma. You can find this at again any store, and the kind I like is the one that has like a little bit of soybean chunks or tofu chunks inside. You can find different varieties of Lao Ganmas. This one's my favorite. So yeah, like whenever I'm making fried rice, I think that's my favorite dish to make. Fried rice, noodles, dumplings. Yeah, essentially those three, the big ones.
Those are all three very great dishes. And Dom Dom comes in with a question. Suyash, what about soy chunks?
Oh, thank you, Dom.
Soy chunks. I knew he loved them. What are soy chunks for people who have never heard of them?
I wish I had them in my pantry, like I could really show people what Dom is referring to. Because once again, when people make soybean oil in Nepal, there's a lot of things that is basically it comes out once you've pressed the soybeans and the oil comes out. So the leftovers or the remainders of the oil pressing process are made into little balls. It's like so dry, it's like dry tofu to a sense, but like they're dried and made into little balls. And what you do is you rehydrate them, and you actually, this all of this so far, whatever we've prepared, goes into like once you've boiled and strained and drained the soy chunks. So that's what Dom is talking about. Those are awesome. And that's also one of my favorite. But I think soy chunks, I would serve it on side, like with something else, like maybe with rice and lentils or rice and bamboo shoots, and then maybe a side of soy chunks. Because once again, those are great things. The other thing I forgot to mention, thank you, Dom, for asking this, because there's like this quote unquote colloquial genre of food, which are called conversation food. And we talked a little bit about this. What we're making today is actually conversation food, because let's say you have cousins over, it's dead of the night, you don't want to go into kitchen and like want your mom to scream at you. What do? You make chatpate, because you're essentially not disturbing or like making a lot of commotion in the kitchen. There's another, and then soy chunks is also one of the foods that people go out when they're hanging out with friends, they order. There's another genre of food called, when you're out with your friends, you have friends, but your drinks also need friends. So
Yes, our drinks need friends.
this food is a friend for your drink. Let's put it
I
that way.
love this. We're making foods for our drink,
Well, yeah,
friends for our drinks.
and the soy chunks that Dom is referring to is also one of the food or friends for our drinks. So
I'm, I'm just giggling because I think of the saying, friends, not food. But in this case, our friends are food. So that's what we're doing.
yeah,
Suyash, I had a question, which is, so I have the lime ready, and I've been like rolling it, and I cut it in half, and I haven't put it in yet because I wasn't sure if you like to put like your spices, like your dry spices in first. So I have cumin, and I actually have crushed Aleppo peppers, which are my favorite. I don't know if you've had Aleppo peppers before. They're like a better, fruitier version of crushed red peppers. For people who don't know, I love Aleppo peppers. And then even though I couldn't find mustard oil, I did have ground mustard seed in my pantry. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just toss some of that in too. Oh my gosh, we have the same bottle. That's too, did I send
this
that
is
to
the one
you?
you sent me.
That's too funny. Well, great minds.
Yeah. So, but thank you for this question. I think now's the time to actually marinate our veggies, because we've been talking too much and the veggies have started watering.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna add is like the seasoning from the ramen.
Oh,
And
I need
this
to do that.
already has chili pepper powder in it, the YY. So I'm just gonna add this into the chopped up
Well,
veggies.
actually, what flavor instant noodle are you using?
That's a very great question. Today I'm using masala curry YY noodles. And since this is from Nepal, where there's when the noodles first started coming in Nepal, of course, a lot of people do eat meat, so there was chicken, but there were also vegetarians, and they were like, well, what about us? So they literally started making vegetarian noodles, to the point that this noodles, ever since I was a kid, has always had this line that says 100% vegetarian.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna be using a generic vegetarian flavored noodles.
Okay, I'm going to grab. I realized so the instant noodles that I got, I guess they have like the saucy kind of flavoring. I'm gonna grab some instant noodles from my pantry that have like the dry powder. So I will be right
Awesome.
back.
Yeah, and I'm gonna fill in folks with another piece of information. The noodles that I'm using today are actually pre-fried, and oh yeah, Kathleen's back. So Kathleen, I was just telling folks that the noodles that I have today are pre-fried, and I
Okay.
went to Kroger, and I wasn't really sure if Maruchan or Nissin were already pre-fried,
Mhm.
which is why I think I wrote that any pre-fried noodles.
Okay.
And I think you'll have to research on that, like when you're making this dish, like try to find a noodles that's already pre-fried, because again, this is not going to be cooked. So, you don't want quote unquote stomach ache. But I'm sure you should be fine.
I will brave the stomach ache if it happens because everything smells so good right now.
Yeah, pre-fried noodles are like the reason why they're so popular is every student, like whenever they're having some big exams coming up, they always have like a YY, or let's say they're going out, hanging out with friends, or they're taking a long bus journey of like about 10 hours or 7 hours, which is very common in Nepal. People have like a packet of YY in their bags because you never know when you're going to be stranded someplace.
Yeah, I'm putting my cumin in right now. Oh no, it looks like we've lost Suyash. Hopefully he comes back.
Yeah,
Oh, there you
I'm
are.
back.
Okay. Okay, great. I was putting my cumin in.
Yeah. I was just saying, like, everybody oftentimes, when they're studying, they have this on their drawer. Whenever people are taking long journeys, they have it in their backpacks. And also, like, if you see a Nepali student who's coming to the States or to the UK, like whenever they're going abroad, they always carry a couple of packets of YY in their backpacks,
Mhm.
because the first few days are going to be difficult and they don't really know where to go. And the YY is your friend. Like the instant noodles, pre-fried, you just crunch it up, mix it up, and then that's what you eat. That's what I
That's
did.
great.
That's what Alpha did. So it's one thing we always get whenever we're going abroad. The other thing we always get is um, pressure cooker. My mom gave this to me when I was leaving for the US. And every time the pressure cooker whistles, it always reminds me of home, because
Oh.
I think a lot of the cooking that we do in Nepal, like the pressure cooker essentially cuts time and makes
Mhm.
it quicker. So the whistle of the pressure cooker is also something that adds to the sounds of the kitchen or soundscape of the kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. Sound and yeah, nostalgia, like how it calls back to those memories. That's great.
Once you've added the dry spices, the powdered spices onto the veggies, I'm gonna
Yes.
a little bit of Sichuan pepper, of course, because I want to give this that what's happening kind of suspense.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, they're ready.
Okay. How do you crush up your noodles? Do you like just do it in a bag? Like what's your
Yeah.
noodle crushing?
You can just do this, but be careful because sometimes the air pressure will make it break from the bottom and they're all gonna fall. I was in school in grade 1. I was hungry. I took out a YY from my backpack. I tried crushing it and it burst from the bottom and my lunch was gone, folks.
Oh no. That is
Good.
very sad.
Yeah. So now is the time, now that we've mixed everything, now your your rice. Okay, can folks see me?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see, this is very well mixed. And this is also, and this is when I'm gonna throw in the rice crisps. Kathleen, you got this?
Your sound's a little bit fuzzy. Are you able to speak more into your phone, maybe?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm gonna be adding rice crisps now.
Okay.
And once you've crushed your noodles, just put the rice crisps in. And this is when the noodles go in. Since I'm making this for 2 people, I'm going to be adding the noodles and the other star of the show, which is mustard oil. Now, this is like a cold pressed. As you can see, it's also very yellowish. So not much. And yeah, I'm just going to give this a mix.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was mixing mine. So yeah, I don't have puffed rice, or I
Mhm.
didn't get it in time. So mine is just the crushed noodles, but
Yeah.
kind of
And
similar.
yeah, and I was actually going to say, yeah, and I was actually going to say that what you're doing, Kathleen, is probably what I used to do every time I had exams late in the night, because I definitely won't have rice crisps in my drawer.
Mm-hmm.
I used to make it with just the noodles. And if you're using YY like me, one of the secret things to do is also make sure that your ginger is a little bit more than garlic. I mean, there's no
Okay.
harm in a lot of garlic. I love, having garlic. But yeah, as you can see, this is how it should look like. Once
Okay.
the mustard oil, it begins to, it smells really good.
I know I'm trying to make my cone before it gets too soggy. Do you have a cone strategy?
So one of the things, I mean, I do is probably have a glass, and
Okay.
once you made your cone,
Oh, yes.
yeah, this is like a cone. This would probably cost $10 in Nepal right now. But when I was a kid, a cone of this thing would be like $5. It's about 5 cents in the US right now.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what the exchange rate was. Okay, so I got my
Yeah.
cone.
So, Kathleen, this is what I'm doing. See? Oh, so cool. See, gastromusicology in action. You have notations on your paper.
I
That's
do. I
what
do.
I'm looking for. So, Kathleen, once you made the cone, just take a glass.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna hold.
Okay. Let me get a clean glass. One moment.
Yeah. And these are all, just strategies to make sure that the cone holds. What I would have done is basically probably made the cone at last, maybe, that would be my last step.
Okay.
But we're still not done, folks.
Oh
Don't
no.
the lemon juice. You can't really have chatpate without, we got saltiness, check. We got the spiciness, check. We got the umami-ness, check, which actually comes from the MSG in the noodles, which is the good stuff. And then we have the lemon juice, which is,
Okay.
adds that kind of freshness we need.
I use lime juice. I'm just spooning my my noodles into my cone.
Yeah, and folks, that's also what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just gonna be adding YY into this. Now, if you're out with your friends, everybody's gonna, take like a handful. The way to eat this is because not everywhere will you find plastic spoons.
Mm-hmm.
People like the vendor actually often has like hard, maybe something out of a cardboard, something like this. Like they'll have something readily available, little bits of cardboard like this, and they'll make a spoon like this. And this is gonna be your spoon because you're not gonna find plastic spoons everywhere. But one way to eat this in Nepal would be, don't mind your hands because I know they're all clean. You would scoop a little bit in your hands
Okay.
and then just, yeah.
Oh my wow. Wow.
Mhm.
This is so good.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Of course, because I taught y'all how to make this.
no.
I'm just kidding.
It's like,
I'm
I
using a
think
spoon.
it's such a tried and tested, yeah, I'm also gonna eat with spoon. Like it's such a tried and tested thing that um I think now when I was in Nepal doing research, like I'm now seeing restaurants serving this on their menu. And I'm like, wow, so street food actually made into this fancy place where like folks are now serving it like this.
You know,
And
I
mhm.
wish we had more of a street food culture in the US. I feel like we really don't outside of like maybe state fairs and farmer markets, but I love street food as kind of. So I guess you have like in Bloomington, I think of like the Euro truck. We have like food trucks, but
Uh-huh.
I can't really think of like, like street food proper. And I love that about visiting places. And I've only been to East Asia. I haven't been to Nepal or South Asia, but in like Taiwan and Seoul and South Korea when I was there, it
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah, yeah. And I can
This
see
is
Simba, that's Simba's cameo appearance on our show. But I mean, you would basically have this. The goal would be you would be served this on a newspaper and not even a fancy paper like this, because that's what everybody has readily available. Um, so yeah, just a moment. I'm gonna go give this to Alpha, who's been in the garden for a while. Just a minute, folks.
you guys, this is so good. Um,
Oh, cool.
I guess it depends on, what combination of spices and things you put in. In my case, I don't have puffed rice. I just use noodles. And I made mine very spicy because I used the hot and spicy noodle mix. And then I put in some extra spice from the Shin Black ramen. And then
Uh-huh.
I added Aleppo peppers. So this is like my face is red and I feel like my sinus is working. But I love the combinations of all the other spices, like the cumin, I can taste it, the cilantro, the red onion, the fresh ginger and garlic. Like so yeah, this is like music in your mouth. Speaking of like, the intersections of food and sound studies, I feel like there's a symphony of flavors in my mouth right now.
Exactly.
And tears are running down my face from the spiciness and also from joy.
Yeah, and the thing that would go with this whenever you're hanging out with your friends, I'm going to share another recipe impromptu, which is take a bottle of Coke or a can of Coke, put it into a glass, add a little bit of the Himalayan rock salt, that gives you that sense of saltiness. Add a little bit of the chaat masala and a little bit of black pepper. And that is what I was served in southern Nepal by the name Masala Coke. Isn't it amazing? Like folks find a way to, just, make Coke into a street food. I hope
I love
Coca-Cola.
that. Masala Coke, that sounds so good. I want some now too. I need to get some chaat masala.
Yeah, I hope like the Coca-Cola company never finds this out, but it is the thing in the summer. It is the thing. Like, um, I think so. Like the day before Alpha and I got married,
Mm-hmm.
when there's this custom of the girls' side visiting the boys' side, um, that is what they were served. Like I remember like serving them masala Sprite because we didn't have Coke. Not everyone likes Coke. So masala Sprite, masala Mountain Dew is a bit too sweet. Fanta doesn't work because it's already like orangish kind of thing. But Coke, I think it's just amazing to like make. So folks, if you're making this the next time, also try a little bit of masala Coke and do share. What do you feel?
We need friends for our drinks as well as for our food. I love that. Also, masala hot chocolate is so good.
Mhm.
I really like masala hot chocolate.
I remember, I think Kathleen had sent me a few packs of masala hot chocolate, and I think the little bit of like spiciness, I think balances really well with the chocolate. But I mean, it's also not a new thing in the sense that folks have been mixing like chocolate with chili peppers kind of thing. If you buy a packet of like Lind, I think it also has a chili pepper flavor chocolate bar. So yeah, so awesome. My question to friends in the chat, is any one of you also making this as we were making?
Totally okay if people are just following along
Yeah.
from their computers. But yeah, if anyone is currently cooking along with us or plans to make this in a very near future, please let us know. Totally okay, John. I know you said you don't have the ingredients on hand. Please make this at home and send us the picture. We would love to see um, pictures of what you created, and then also your experience once you finish making it and putting it all together when you eat it. Tell us what your reaction is. We would love to know. In chat, Witness Rock Kyle says, we just had loaded baked potatoes. That is also a wonderful American symphony of flavors. And Dom said, I made Madras lentils. Also sounds super good. But yeah, please, if you make this, let us know. And we want to see. I like that there's so many different combinations. I would definitely make this again. I'm trying not to like just dump the rest of my mouth because this is so addictive. This is so good.
Yeah, and I think the goal is like I said, Kathleen, when you've made it so quickly, I think you also want to finish it quickly because you want to finish it like before the rice is
before it gets too soggy.
Before it gets too soggy. But yeah. Awesome.
Actually, Suyash, if you don't mind, I'm going to go downstairs and share a little bit of this. And I'm wondering, forgive me while I'm absent. I'm wondering if you can tell people more about sensory ethnography, because that is absolutely what we're doing right now. I guess that's sort of two questions. A, what is ethnography for those who are unfamiliar with that term, but also the sensory part. Like, is that new? Like, how did you learn about this? So I will be right back.
Awesome. So thank you, Kathleen. So for folks, like I said, music and food research was not my primary research, or like was not going to be my primary research in dissertation phase. When I first joined IU Indiana University, Bloomington in 2018, what I wanted to do was research on Nepali diaspora here in the US. But I soon realized that if I were to do any research on the diaspora, I'll have to stay here in the US, and that would mean, making a lot of arrangements, visa and this and that. So I, quickly gave up on that. Then I moved on to archives because I wanted to do research on like archives here in the US or the Nepali collection that we have at IU Bloomington. So that was the second plan I had. And that also kind of didn't work out, not in the sense that I quit that plan, but because I took my first food anthropology class in 2020, and it was the semester when COVID happened.
Oh, no.
Because here at IU, I think you have, 2 or 4 courses that you can explore to decide, what's going to be your minor. And I was very undecided, like, what's going to be my minor. So the very first week of my food anthropology class, I was like, boom, this is what I want to do. This makes me happy. This combines the two things I love the most. And also, I think I was sort of already into that, in the sense that I was already thinking about the sound of food. Like, if you go to my Instagram page, which is PH Dumplings, which is like where I cook like food and explore a lot of these themes. I, the one of the first things I did when I came to the US was actually eat pani puri, which are like little ping pong ball looking things made of wheat and semolina. They're just like puffed up balls. And what you do is you crack the top, you fill it up with spiced up mashed potatoes and a spicy juice, something similar to masala coke, and you put it in your mouth. What happens is you not only have this burst of flavor, but also like the sound, the crunchiness. And you have to eat it fast because, otherwise, the ball is going to be soggy and it's going to break apart. So I was already doing that. So getting into food, and also because it was COVID, one of the ways I was staying connected with my family, with my mom, was basically eating together via Zoom or via Facebook Messenger. Like I had one friend in Virginia, the other friend was in the UK. I had my friends in Nepal, and then we would often have like find a time and eat together. So even though we were not eating together, we were still sharing like the sounds of food together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So Yash, I have 2 quick questions for you. One from chat. Dom says, was Food Anthro with Rick Wilk?
Food Anthro with?
Rick Wilk.
Rick Wilk. I don't know. How do you
Okay,
spell?
I think the answer is no, Dom. Who is your Food Anthro class with? Who taught it?
It was with um, Dr. Jennifer Robinson.
Okay.
But I mean, I think I was already exploring these things with friends as well, like not only during COVID, but also like before COVID itself. So, and sensory ethnography is one of the ways that came out after the visual anthropology phase, or sensory ethnography that sort of is very much inspired by visual anthropology or visual ethnography, where scholars are saying, but can writing actually tell us, how much can writing tell us about food? Or how much can writing a recipe, or how much can writing about music can tell us about food or music, wherein in reality, it makes more sense to actually listen to the music, and it makes actually sense to actually eat and experience food in these ways, right? Like, because I can write a recipe for Chatpate, which I did, but I'm pretty sure, like when you made it yourself, Kathleen, you realized, oh wow, yeah, this is why Suyash said that I should add the rice crisps and the noodles at last, because it's gonna get soggy otherwise, and that's gonna miss the whole experience. So sensory ethnography, like I said, is this, it requires this sort of abandonment, as Tomi Han wants us to do, but also it challenges this hierarchy of senses that have existed in our disciplines for a long time, which is whatever the eyes see, those were it has been described as ocular centrism, which is like, so much of focus is on like what we see. Descartes and all of these philosophers saying seeing is believing, but sensory ethnography is actually sort of challenging that narrative and saying other sensory experiences are also important. And there's also, I think, a sort of direct challenge to hierarchy of academia, and also like this sort of challenge to colonial knowledge that was produced, where people who could read and write, or engage with the visual, would see people who were engaging with whatever they saw as more of sensorial, and therefore more close to the animalistic nature, because they saw people, or like in other culture, were enjoying food, or like engaging much more with their body. It was seen as sort of a hierarchy of civilization and that sort of thing. So I think sensory ethnography for me is also in a way centering those narratives around food, about people who were seen as uncivilized, or unmannered, because simply because they were choosing to be sensual in everyday life. So I think it also, I think, brings to mind like a lot of things I think about nowadays about there's this awesome paper that came out about how in Europe, like constructing houses or constructing manors or bungalows, or like these like huge estate houses, where the kitchen would be really far from wherever people spoke to their guests, or wherever people held important meetings, because they thought that the sound of kitchen would be like too, it wouldn't gel well with the aristocracy, so to speak. And also I think it brings to mind the sort of whole mannerism that sort of came into South Asia during colonization, where people were like, oh, do not eat with your mouth open, or do not make sounds while you're eating, or this whole like table manner, like do not eat with your hands. um and sensory ethnography actually asks you to consider those things, because in Japan, let's say, we talked about this, how slurping your ramen is actually good. And it's not just a way to tell your chef that you're really happy with what you're eating, but also, I mean, technically, aerating your food also, makes your taste buds more, you know, activated, so to speak, or like adds more pleasure to your eating experience. So yeah, I think sensory ethnography in a nutshell is all these and so much more. Like,
Thank
yeah.
you. Okay, Suyash, I am just so happy with our conversation right now, because I think you're asking us to sort of think about what do we value in our everyday lives, as we sort of navigate just like with our senses, with our experiences. And I like the word that you use, ocular centric, because you are right, like
Yeah.
oftentimes like, we get visual information like right away. And I'm not so much considering maybe like auditory or even like tactile or,
Yeah.
I'm not tasting things. But, with your recipe, right? We can look at your recipe, we could see the video of you making it, even like maybe hear it, but you don't get how special it is until you eat it, and then when I put it in my mouth for the first time, like, oh my gosh, like it was just such a revelation, like all the distinct flavors and that you were mentioning, the salt, the sour, the spicy, the crunchy, like all of that came together.
Yeah.
And, it was really important to experience that. And
Yeah.
so
And
that's why I really want people to make this at home and let us know what you think.
definitely. And also, I mean, not just this dish, but like any dish people
Yeah.
make, I want people to think, wow, wow, like what was the sonic side of things? What is it that happened when I made this dish today? Um, like and I think for communities, it's also important, like the whole sonic or like the sensorial experience is important. You remember, Kathleen, a few days ago, we were talking about this idea of homecoming or like diasporic homecoming amongst like Filipino or like Thai communities here in the US. And there's like awesome books that are coming out nowadays. Like I think Martin Mansalan, who's a scholar, has written on the Thai experience here in the US, where the concept of yum, which is the quintessential Thai perfect balance of,
Mm.
if you've had Thai food, you get what I mean. It's like sweet but sour and spicy and a lot of other like umaminess, like all of umami, all of these flavors like perfectly balanced. People feel like they're close to home, and homecoming doesn't always mean you're landing right there in Nepal or wherever like you call home, but your sense of home, like your sense of making home wherever you are. So I think it's important to recognize and be aware, and I would say, not shy away from those experiences.
Okay, this is backtracking a little bit, but earlier when you're talking about how you kept in touch with your friends and family during the very, early stages of COVID when, we couldn't really gather together in person. And you mentioned, some of your friends in Nepal, your friends and family, and that's about what's the time difference between Indiana and Nepal?
I think with the daylight saving, I'm not really sure what happens. Confuses me. I'm sorry, guys. Like it's okay. I woke up and some folks are like, "Yay, one more extra hour to sleep," and then some folks are like, "No, one less hour to like actually like do things late into the night." Anyways, I think the time difference between um what where was
It's
I?
probably like 9 hours because I think
Yeah.
if it's about like a 12-hour difference from Pacific. Um, but okay, this blew my mind too when I was talking to Suyash. I was asking about time differences and time zones. Like I was just joking how, I always set multiple alarms when I have meetings with other people in different time zones because I'm so worried that I'll miss
Mhm.
it. And of course, in the US, in the continental US, we have the four time zones: Central,
Yeah.
Pacific, Mountain, and
So I think
Eastern.
the time
But
difference.
tell everyone about
Yeah.
your time zones in
So my
Nepal.
time zones are like the time difference between Nepal and Indiana, as I'm like looking at globaltimeconverter.com, is 10 hours 45 minutes. And this like something blows my mind. Um
Like the
uh,
45 minutes, like I'm so used to things being on an hour, but there are these 15-minute time differences between these countries. And I didn't realize that. I thought it was just always like on the hour. I didn't realize there were 15-minute different time zones that existed.
yeah, and something I do want to add, like a complex thing to that, is the time difference in the US really shocked me, like the time zone thing, which is something I should have been aware, but I really wasn't aware, was like how India is big. I mean, it's not as like probably big as the US, but like I'm looking at how United States is 3 times bigger than India. And if everyone can look at my screen, you can see how it says here, United States is 3 times bigger than India, and then we have the the East Coast, and then there's like I think Chicago has a different time zone. Kathleen, please correct me if I'm wrong.
So yeah, the part of Indiana that is right by Chicago is in Central and not Eastern time.
Yeah, but then folks, it's amazing, or like it's shocking to you maybe to listen that all of India has like the same time zone.
And
Like,
then and then you said from India to Pakistan to Nepal, there's
yeah, to
it's
Bangladesh, it's like, yeah, I think India and Sri Lanka have the same time zone.
uh-huh.
Like, Nepal is 15 minutes behind India. I think Bangladesh is an hour ahead of New Delhi, capital of India. And Pakistan is like, I think 30 minutes behind India or something like that. So I'm like, in that little small, like, sort of, of course, South Asia is huge, but like, wow. And I grew up in the southern part of Nepal, which is like, me and my dad would often just walk into the other side of the border because we were craving samosas or tea. And it would be like, oh, we've crossed, change your, watch time or something like that. This was
To
before like
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Or like if there was a special broadcast from India, like you had to patiently wait, like it's already 3, but it's not exactly 3 when it begins. It's gonna be 3:15, so hold your horses, that kind of situation. So basically, what is time, is, but also like to add complexity to that. During COVID, like when I wrote my first ever food anthropology paper, I was talking about this giant Facebook group I have, which is called Gabbar Family. Gabbar was the name of like one of the most popular villains in Bollywood because he was like giant and huge. And Gabbar essentially means something that's huge and giant. And this group is large. It has, I think, at one point it had like 33 members from all over the world, should I say. We had a family joining in from the UK. We had one family joining in from Australia, like a few folks joining in from India, from Nepal, and from the US, of course. Can you imagine like how many people are joining in from so many different time zones at like different time of the day? So while I would be drinking my morning tea, my grandma in Nepal would be having her dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think the sort of virtuality and the possibility in a virtual sort of world or virtual arrangement to actually challenge those ideas of like what time we are in, actually, it's just amazing.
I definitely feel that, when I call my parents when they're in Taiwan, they spend about half the year in Taiwan and then the other half in the United States. And I always have to double check, what time is it now? Sometimes I'll get messages from my mother on my phone at like, 3 or 4 in the morning. And obviously I'll be sleeping, but it's always like a reminder of people living their lives just at all times in the world. Just
Yeah, absolutely. And I
yeah.
think that's also, I think, in a sense, the beauty of it, in that the unexpectedness, because my grandma does the same. She'll send me a text or she'll call me, and it'll be like really late into the night, or it'll be really late at night for her. So she'll be in a hurry to put the phone down. She'll be like, oh, like you must sleep, go sleep. And I'm like, grandma, it's morning, we just woke up and I'm gonna go walk to my job, like I can talk to you for a little while. But um but yeah, I think that's but I mean, we've had so many functions like that, in different time zones. Like there was this moment when I really wanted, when we had this virtual event, and I was making dumplings over here, and me and Alpha were making dumplings over here, and my mom made dumplings over there. So while we were having our dinner, she was having lunch, but it was essentially the same dish, which is something I think I'm really amazed. And it's so beautiful that we did this today, because we're in two different places in two different time zones, Kathleen, but we made the same dish. That is exactly what I actually a lot of times do with my friends and families, where I think digital commensality is one of the word I use a lot, which is we're in the digital world, like we're in the screen, but we're eating together, because the whole idea of commensality is like eating together with people. So I think that's one of the plus things that happen.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you mind if I switch, I guess, switch topics a little bit? Now that we're sort of talking about like the internet and like digital culture. So of course I told everyone you're interested in, like food, sound studies, ethnomusicology. But something I love is your love for as I was reading in your bio, just say internet born art forms. Can you tell us more about that? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, you just said dinnernet, and I'm like, that's so awesome of a word.
Dinnernet. Let's yeah,
I've,
let's let's remember dinnernet forever.
I've started using I've started using the word kitchen hood as neighborhood, like kitchen hood, as in stories that happen in the kitchen, which is today's episode is a kitchen hood, folks. So yeah, thank you for asking. I think for me, the I should get into a little bit of context before I say like why I'm so interested in the like internet born practices and like nostalgia, the 80s. What is Suyash talking about? I grew up in Nepal, where up to this day, like songs from the 80s and the 90s are really cool. You step into a bar, folks still perform those songs. You see folks perform like nothing's gonna stop us now, like in karaoke, or like any of the really popular songs like songs like Bon Jovi or all of these like rock bands, Black Sabbath, like regardless of what scene you're in, people are still interested in like whatever music comes from the past. But the revelation I had when I came to the US was that in Nepal, I think we were still sort of enjoying the 80s when it was the 90s, and we were still enjoying the 90s when it was the 2000s. So I was like, you know, and as someone who grew up in Nepal in the 90s, I think one of the things that really gives me the sense of home is the music that I listened to as a kid, which is 90s or 80s pop culture here in the US. So that's what got me really started in it. Scholar wise or scholarship wise, I had this awesome opportunity to really hang out and be friends with Kyle, who actually taught me like a lot about 80s subculture or pop culture here in the US, and also Dr. Fernando Orejuela, who's like one of my advisors and the coolest person who like taught me. Yeah, like there's a lot of things, like a lot of things that were happening here in the US, music wise, fashion wise, what happened when MTV blew up, cassette culture, all of these things, right? So in 2010, I think a movie came out called Drive, and this French producer called Kavinsky, who basically had one of the songs in the movie, and the song is called Night Call, and it's people, I think just got into it, and it became huge. I think the song was already released or something, but like was re-released for the movie. So people started getting into this vibe of like, wow, it sounds something that is from the 80s but still sounds modern. So synthwave, when I say synthwave, is essentially that. It's a sort of reimagination of the 80s, but with this idea that how did people in the 80s imagine the future? So in a sense, it's like you're in 2020 or 2022, you're trying to travel to the past, and people in the 80s, you're trying to look at what people in the 80s would have imagined the future to be. So synthwave is kind of a middle point of that, the best of both worlds, or like the sonic sort of ambience or environment of both worlds. When I really hung out with Kyle, like we started talking a lot about the history of technology, the technological consideration that goes into producing this kind of music. For example, a cool fact would be when people make synthwave, a lot of the purists actually try to get the same instruments, like TR-808 drum machine, or like the Linn drum machine that Prince really made popular, composing a lot of drum tracks on it. Or one of the things people do is when you listen to a lot of synthwave songs, at least the early synthwave songs, you will find that there's the polyvocality in keyboards. Up to that point in time, keyboards would not have produced more than 4 voices or 4 voicings. So when you make synthwave songs, like you'll put chords that actually replicate the chordal style of the 80s. And a lot of like bright electronic piano sounds, like Juno would be one like really popular keyboards of that time. So yeah, like synthwave is essentially a practice or an internet born, and I'm saying internet born because that is where people found out that you're interested in this, I'm too, you know. And if you watch, there's this movie called Rise of the Synth, which is narrated by the synth lord John Carpenter himself. It's awesome. It's multilingual. You'll have to get subtitles. But Rise of the Synth, actually, if you watch the movie, you'll find out that it wasn't just one place where this genre was rising up. It wasn't just the United States. It wasn't just France. It was also Belgium. It was also, I'm now seeing like folks are sharing with me like how people are also getting into synthwave in places like Turkey, how people are also getting into synthwave in places like India, in Nepal. So I think an internet-born genre, definitely like mukbang or like ASMR to that matter. I think it really helps to say that it is not one thing. It's not tied to one geography. It breaks up this whole idea of area, like where should you focus really. And I think that's also pertinent to one of the things that's coming up in ethnomusicology or sound studies, where folks are like slowly getting into challenging the area studies approach, where back in the day, folks would be saying, oh, I need to go somewhere far to do research. Now internet is your
Yeah.
doorstep to do research. So yeah, I hope
Uh,
that answers your question.
no, absolutely. Okay, Suyash, I have two things. First, I forgot to say, I feel like my shirt is like such a great like example. Okay, so this is one of my favorite Instagram cats who lives in Japan. His name is Bungaku, and I just love him. And you can see it's the David Bowie, it's the zigzag, And this is an intersection of Instagram cat and 80s music on my shirt right here, which I I just realized now. So I'm glad I'm wearing a shirt today. We had a question for you in the chat. This is actually comes from Kyle, who said, "Tell us about vaporwave, Suyash." Tell us about vaporwave. I think you're muted. You just muted yourself accidentally.
Sorry, what I said when I did this was, oh no, that's such a difficult question, Kyle. So I'm really interested in synthwave, and honestly, if you pick up any synthwave mixtape or playlist on YouTube, like it's not, you'll not really find people who are saying like, oh, I'm not gonna listen to this because this is vaporwave. I'm not gonna listen to this. This is synthwave. I think to me personally, as a listener, or as person who's like somebody who's really invested in it, I think for me, synthwave is sort of attuning more into the past or the narrative of the 80s or the reimagination of 80s soundscape. But let me correct myself. Synthwave isn't just, or vaporwave isn't just about the music. It's not just about the sound. There's like a whole aesthetic that goes into it. Like, the Broken Sunset image, Kathleen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very much like, let me find one. Oh my god, the meaning of Broken Sunset has changed because I tried googling it up and it is totally different than what I imagined. But anyways, Broken Sunset, or Tron like grid lines,
Yes.
those kind of things. Synthwave, more or less, people say it tends to be more on the darker spectrum of colors, like purple or pink, neon.
Mhm.
um, Whereas vaporwave actually is more or less attuning to the mall culture of the US, and that is something that is very specific. Like mall soft is also a word that came, I think, around or before vaporwave, which
Mall
is
soft.
mall soft. The soft background music that used to be played in malls. So Jonathan Stern, actually a sound studies scholar, has an excellent paper called the Malls of America, where
Yes, I've read that.
yeah,
Yes.
Jonathan, I think, talks about how if you want to consider malls as an architectural space, please consider the sound also a part of the architecture. So that is one way to describe, I think, vaporwave. I think vaporwave also tends to be light, pastely, And please, folks, please don't quote me on this. Please don't be like, Suyash generalized a bunch of things today. I'm just telling you from my experience, from like countless hours of like Redditing and things like that. Um, and vaporwave also is not just music. I think there's a whole aesthetic that goes into it. There's like Greco-Roman statues being superimposed with like Japanese hiragana or katakana scripts, and then there's like whole the glitch thing that happens. um but also like I think we should be also mindful that there's a bunch of things as it happened with electronic music, where there was this sort of reappropriation of both synthwave and vaporwave by like you know racist folks, or like the right wing narrative was like, oh, this is like the music that we totally speaks for us. And like there's a lot of artists who have actually come up saying, no, that was not our intention. Our intention is not to sort of glorify this sort of imperialist or like capitalist notion, but more or less make parody of it. So both, I think, synthwave, makes oftentimes on purpose makes parodies of the 80s sounds or like movies. If you watch any synthwave videos, you know what I mean. It's like, wow, this is over the top, and I know why. These are like aliens trying to play saxophone and things like that. The same thing with vaporwave. It's like, yeah, you remember that awesome mall we had? This is what happened, and this is the sounds we get. So for those folks who already know, like who already get what I'm saying, but the interesting thing I must add is, you see, it was not something I experienced. My only experience of 80s pop culture in Nepal was through movies or music, and coming to the US and then hanging out with folks, talking to folks like Kyle and Dr. Rehuela was when I realized, oh, wow. So people experienced it, probably in a much direct way, of course, and also in a different way. So
Right.
vaporwave, synthwave, I should say, are like cousins, you know. And if you get into one, there's no, I really don't mind both of these genres. But if I was listening, I'd definitely listen more to synthwave. Also lo-fi, because it overlaps. It's like a Venn diagram trifecta that like, oh yeah, totally. Suyash is in the middle of like synthwave, vaporwave, and lo-fi. So yeah.
We have yeah, just a comments in the chat. I got to check out some Mallsoft now. I want to check out some Mallsoft as well. Um John also noted, yeah, definitely vaporwave has a very unique aesthetic. I enjoy the music and style of it, and synthwave too. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think, and in the chat, I've added Tomie Han's book.
Okay.
Um, if you're interested, it's Arousing Senses is another book. And Tomie is a performance artist and also an ethnomusicologist, also a sound studies person, who's basically talking about this whole experience of learning how to dance, and the importance of sensory ethnography in this process. So those two scholarship are my go-to. Oh, the Rise of the Synth website is down. I'm sorry, folks. I was gonna share that. Um,
That's okay. I have while you're looking for it, I have a good Tomie Han story.
Please.
When I was in grad school, very early on, this was probably before you were at IU. I
Mhm.
went to a conference. It might have been, I can't remember if it was the one in Toronto or if it was elsewhere, but Tomei Han, I believe, was a keynote. And she had everyone in the audience as like an activity. We all had these like ropes or like ribbons, and
Mhm.
then we like tied ourselves and connected ourselves to everyone else in the room. And then I think we tried to like untie ourselves afterwards, but it was such like an interesting activity where we were made like very aware of like our connections to other people, and these like these like ropes that bonded us together. So Tobia is great, yeah, in terms of like scholarship, and also what she does with getting you to think about performance studies, ethnography. Definitely check out her work, or look her
Yeah.
up if you've never heard of her before.
And also, I think Tomi's work is very approachable. It's not like, hey, I'm a scholar and you have to deal with this stuff. Um, in a scholarly manner, although like that is what I oftentimes primarily do. But like it's also very much a workshopping book, like the one I shared about arousing senses. It's basically saying, the next time you're at a beach, pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay like what can you like the things that I do when I'm anxious, for example, is like 5 things I can touch, or like 5 things I can, 4 things I can
Yeah.
hear, or like see and smell and things like that. So I think it's a good book. So the Broken Sunset, for folks, this is what we're talking about.
Okay, I will. Oh, you're sharing it. Oh, yes.
So yeah, like I said, the synthwave thing was, Tron kind of grids, broken sunsets, too many, graphical things. But yeah, I think it's awesome how, coming to the States, I think one of the best things that has happened to me is getting to engage with people and their experiences of like 80s, and how, nostalgia is, while folks in the 80s had all this imagination of how the future would be, you watch any Back to the Future thing, that's like one of the quintessential things to have with a synthwave backpack is Back to the Future. The imagination of the future, like flying hoverboards and skateboards and things like that. Shoes that tie themselves up. Whereas now we're in 2020, 2010, like post 2010 world. Reimagining, or sort of like tapping into the 80s and saying, wow, okay, this is what the folks would, is this their imagination of the future, or is this like our imagination of the future? I think it's both. Yeah.
We have a caps lock comment from Kyle. We were promised flying cars.
I know, Kyle. And also like, Kyle, if you're in the chat, yeah, I do want to mention that Kyle has been really instrumental, another synth fun, instrumental in very real sense, and then actually teaching me a lot about like 80s pop culture, and how, the whole production side of things. Because for those of you who don't know, Kyle, actually does like studio production as ethnography, Kathleen, which is like producing an album as part of an ethnographic experience. I think it's totally amazing. And Kyle was the one who was telling me about like, this instrument would have been used in this way, or this song actually makes use of this instrument. And these are the quintessential songs that people were looking to. So thank you, Kyle. I want to say that. And also, Dom, for all the food based experience. And yeah, I'm sure I'm not saying thank you right away because it's not the end, but just
No,
wanted to say thanks.
yeah, I think, credit and shout outs are always wonderful. I don't think we have nearly enough, gratitude in our world. So it's good to share it where we can.
Yeah.
I definitely, as you're speaking, I'm thinking I should send you some musicians and bands that I'm interested in, like the Proto Men or Gunship, I think is the name of one of
Yes.
these bands. Yeah, I like Gunship a lot. And Suyash, you just got a Switch for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, he just got a Switch. And I really want him to get the game Melatonin, which actually I'll be playing on stream next Tuesday with an ethnomusicologist. So you're able to make it. Definitely tune in, but you should play it for yourself because it is absolutely a
Mm-hmm.
synth wavy game. It is all purple. The music is wonderful, and I think it's one of the best music rhythm games I've ever played,
Yeah.
outside of Rhythm Heaven Fever and the Taiko game.
Yeah. Yeah. And to add to that, I think, like I said, synthwave and vaporwave aren't just music scenes. They've seeped into so much of like gaming, or food. Like, I remember like restaurants, trying to tap into that vibe of the 80s. Like, there's like songs, there's a song called Cold Pizza by this band called The Midnight, and it's so cool. There's a couple other genres that have also been now tapping into the 80s. Like there's this band called Cannons, and there's this song called Bad Dreams, which is like, when you hear it, when you watch the music video, you're like, oh yeah, this is like the 80s quintessential trope, and I can totally see where you're going with this. um but yeah, I think in the food realm, I wish there was also more of that happening. I mean, if I'm thinking of purple food, what would it be? Ube, maybe ube ice cream, for those of you who are familiar. Ube is a fruit. It's like purple in color. And you'll find this at any Asian grocery store. Try to find ube. I think it's produced in the Philippines. It's like a purpley ice cream. Just like black currant is also purple anyways. But I do want to make, that comment that I'm really glad how synthwave and vaporwave, I think people are finding so much ways to connect to these things without having to call it synthwave or vaporwave as well.
Yeah. There's also ube jam, which is good. When I lived, well, I guess my first few years in Las Vegas, and then they moved. I don't know where they are now. There is a local like mom and pop duo who would always go to the farmers market, and they made ube, like vegan ube cookies. And these are like the best cookies I ever had. And I was so sad when they moved, because I don't know how to replicate it, but it was just like that, like that sweet ube taste, and like the texture was just like really unbelievable. So I really miss that.
Yeah.
Destroy John said, I wonder what synthwave would taste like. I feel like it would taste like purple, John. Maybe.
Lots of purple, lots of neon. But John, that's a great question, because one of my favorite movies to watch every time I'm stressed, anytime I'm stressed, is Blade Runner. And it's both Blade Runner. I'm not the person who's gonna be like, the old one was better and the new one sucks. No, both of these are great. I think Denis Villeneuve, I don't know how to pronounce the name, like the one who produced Dune as well, is a master at like producing this. Oh, am I frozen? Yeah, like
No, you're
Dune.
back now.
Yeah, the guy who produced Dune. But anyways, like Blade Runner, I love them both. And one of the things I really loved in Blade Runner 1 was this scene where Deckard goes to the street food part of the town and buys noodles. And one of the things that I've always like, that was, I think, when I really wanted to make the exact recipe for Blade Runner noodles, because that is exactly what it would taste like, John. It would be, I think, synthwave is also a reimagination or like imagination of what the future is going to look like, right? And I think with that comes this consideration of, we're already destroying the planet. What are the kind of things will be available to us in the future? And I think that is where things like Blade Runner come in. That is also where things like Cyberpunk 2077, the game comes in, because I've not played the game, but I remember watching a few playthrough on YouTube. There's like noodles is one of the things that's gonna be there. I think Soylent was something that folks were already discussing here in the US, so artificially produced. But I mean, noodles can stay fresh for like a long time, dry noodles. So noodles are gonna be there. And oh, I got sidetracked, but Blade Runner, no. And I found this blog like composed by, it's a blog that's called Spirited Noodles.
Oh,
And
love
it's
that.
the intersection of food and pop culture. And here's the recipe for Blade Runner noodles, which, if I'm correct, these folks got to try at San Diego Comic-Con within the Blade Runner 2049 experience. So they were at this Blade Runner themed, I don't know how things work in Comic-Con, but they got to try these noodles, and there's the recipe.
I love that. So
So I'm yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say really quickly, one of our moderators for Humanities at Play, Tannhauser81, who wields a sword for us. I don't know if you remember the speech from Blade Runner, but that's where his username comes from, Tannhauser. Tannhauser, yeah, at the very
Orion
end.
on the Tannhauser Gate.
Yes.
I've seen things people wouldn't. Oh, that's so poetic. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to share that. And then we had just a few other comments like, I really enjoyed Cyberpunk and I love the style of it. I have to rewatch Blade Runner now and see if I can recreate those noodles. And this is before you shared the recipe. So now, John, yes, you can try those noodles. Tannhauser said, Suyash knows what's up. I love that. So I'm gonna switch gears really quickly, and just in the last few minutes of our stream, I could talk to you for hours, honestly. I always love, chatting with you, as you know. I learn so much and I have a great time.
Yeah, of course.
Um, this is a question I ask of everyone who appears on our stream for the first time. There is no right or wrong answer. It's just simply, what comes to your mind when I ask you. But Suyash, what do the humanities mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. I think when you first asked me this, and I think I had a couple times like a day to think about it. Um, it struck to me that when I was in Nepal, there was no way where folks actually differentiate between like what is the arts or what is social sciences and what is the humanities. Because like people imagine these to be like the same thing, or like within the same sort of stream of discipline and things like that. So discipline wise, I think for me, and as you can see, I'm already trying to do as much as I can, as best as I can, when it comes to interdisciplinarity or like multidisciplinarity. Like I just don't want to be the kind of person who's going to be like, oh, I'm doing this and this is what I do and I'm going to hang out with these folks only. I want to make sure that wherever I go, I at least have a way of like having more people or inviting more people at my table. That's one of my goals. So, and I think that also answers to your question, Kathleen, in a sense that that is what humanity or the humanities like means to me, in the sense the sort of radical acceptance, not just of others, but also of ourselves. Um, and to me, I think it also means um, being doing things that make you happy, doing things that because you want to do them, um, and where everyone's just sharing the joy, the love, the happiness with everyone else. Because I mean, honestly, coming to the States, I think if anything, that has been my biggest treasure or pleasure is like having all these friends who show cool things to me. And I get to learn all these cool stuff. Like I get to, and I hope at the end of the day, I'm like sharing as much as I can, um, how they're sharing, everything with me as well. So I know it sounds very abstract, and this might not sound like a very crystal clear answer, but at this point, I'm at this stage in my life where I'm thinking, what makes me happy, and what makes this friend happy, or what is the thing I remember about our first encounter, or what is the memories I'm going to be making when I go back to Nepal or when I move places after school. So I think making memories as much as we can is also what being human means, or like the humanity means to me. But also, I mean, added to that, all of the writ large things like kindness and things like that. But and when I say kindness, compassion, humility, I think I don't mean just for like me as a person. Also, I think I want to extend that to a wider, realm of beings and things, like the whole world, if it's possible. But yeah, that's what I think what humanity means to me.
That's really lovely. Thank you, Suyash. Well, I think, thanks to everyone who's, stuck with us through this entire conversation and those who have come in and out as well. So this stream will be recorded. It'll be on Twitch for about 7 days, and then it gets archived after that. But we do have a YouTube channel where we're going to put all of our videos up very soon. So for anyone who missed this and you'd like to watch it again in the future, we will put it up on YouTube at some point, so you can rewatch and have all these great references. So I'm just wondering, to close out stream, if anyone in chat has any last questions I'd like to ask of him, or if there's anything that you'd like to share with people. Again, there's just I feel like we could easily talk for, 3, 4, 5 more hours. You could make some dumplings for dinner and then we could talk some more about other things. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just been really great.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, well, chat, thanks. Is there anything that you would like to share with folks? And it's okay if you can't think of anything, but if there was anything that you wanted to tell people or that you'd like them to know about, I think for me, I want to know more about this egg yolk salt. That's my
Okay,
question.
let me
Because where did you, I guess, where did you get it from? And because your container just says rock salt on it. So I'm wondering, you know, I want to try this.
Kathleen, I'm just writing it on the chat. Mm, so it's called Bire Nun, and
Okay.
B stands for brave, salt. Nun stands for salt. So if you go to a Nepali, in if you go to an Indian store, and here in the US, I think we have Patel Brothers. It's called Kala Namak. Kala and Kala Namak. Kala is equal to black. Namak is equal to salt.
And I'm just realizing as you're typing all this out, I meant to tell or ask you too about we had this great conversation about like the meanings of your name, and we never got to that. So maybe we can get to that really quickly as well.
Yeah, so my name is Suyash Kumar Neupane. I was named by my grandfather. My dad initially named me Safal. Safal means successful in Sanskrit, but my grandfather, my mom's dad, thought that was too common of a name. So he's going to name me Suyash. Suyash, Su meaning good, Yash meaning fame. So in Sanskrit, the name translates to living up to your good name, or someone living up to your good name. I hope I can do that. Kumar is Kumar means prince or a bachelor. And although I'm married, I still have it in my name because not because I'm married, but or I was unmarried at one point in time, but because in my family at least, there was this idea of like taking your maternal uncle's middle name. So my eldest maternal uncle's middle name was, I think, Vijay Kumar Podial or Vimal Kumar Podial, and I took the Kumar. Neupane, and we discussed this earlier about how if I were to write my surname in Nepali, it would have totally different set of vowels and even consonants. But in English, Neupane is exactly how you pronounce it. The name came after, like, I think long ago in our genealogy, it is written like the first person, like had a brother, and his elder brother was able to produce fire out of nowhere. This person became Acharya, which is why all of the people with Acharya surnames in Nepal are from that lineage. My lineage is of the younger brother who was able to produce water out of nowhere. So Neupane, no, Neu meaning new, Pane meaning water. So someone who is able to make water out of nowhere. Although I will say fire is my favorite element. So there is a quick answer to your question. But yeah, Suyash Kumar became my first name because when Nepali government made my passport, they moved my middle name to my first name because Nepali passports don't have a middle name section. So that's another fun fact. The other fun fact is I have a flag of Nepal, and it's probably the only flag in the world that is not square. The other flag is, Dom, please correct me. I think it was the flag of Ohio State or state of Ohio. It also has like a little fishtail kind of thing. But yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we have one last question for you in chat, which is, what do you think would be the perfect pairing for food and music? Would you make the music based around the food or the food based around the music?
Wow, that's such a great question. And on that, like people pairing like wine with certain kinds of food, like people hearing Western classical music and then ended up buying like the most expensive wine they could find because they thought, like, everybody's keeping up their status kind of thing. Or like why it doesn't help to have a relaxing music at a fast food joint. like you're at a burger shop, imagine somebody plays, the most slowest Vivaldi they can find, or how front of the house has a different music than back of the house in a restaurant. Like the chefs are all like banging up, like playing heavy metal or something, or punk, and then the front of the house is like some relaxing piano thing that happens. For me, I think when I'm cooking, what I listen to a lot is new wave or electronic music. I listen to a lot of synthwave, no surprises, but also I've been like really getting into 80s. I think The Cure or The Smith or like New Order, these kind of music where I can put it in the background and cook. But really, I think it also depends on what I'm cooking. Let's say if it's a Nepali festival, I'll definitely have like a Nepali festival playlist going on because I'm also cooking with Alpha and she wants to hear that kind of music. But yeah, I think pairing music wise, if you're at a Nepali festival, you'll probably hear the songs that are made for that festival or like festive songs. Um, for me, being here in the US, I don't always get to celebrate festivals on the day that I should celebrate them. And it happens to be like a weekend instead of a Tuesday. So I think a lot of times I'll just shift things around. But yeah, I think punk and uh, electronic music, new wave and goth, um, synthwave, vaporwave, and lo-fi are all the genres that I oftentimes listen to when I'm cooking. Otherwise, I'm just gonna have like the sound of fire burning. On Netflix, there's this 30-minute long ASMR of just the fire burning, like a log
Yes,
of wood burning. I like that. I've
it is
had that.
very calming. Yes.
Very I've had that when friends are over for dinner. I'm like, what? I'm like, I would have a fireplace. This is the best I can do. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, John said, thank you very much for the answer. I appreciate it. Okay, Suyash, so I think this brings us to the end of the stream. So what I'm going to do, kind of similar to the beginning of this stream where I ran downstairs, now I'm going to run upstairs and sort of just say goodbye to everyone before we close out for tonight. But while I run upstairs, I'm wondering if there's any last things that you would like to share with the
Yeah,
chat. So
absolutely.
I will be right back. And I'm sorry I'll miss this answer, but I'll listen to the video afterwards and get it. But I will be right back and go upstairs.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. I am really grateful to Kathleen for having me here, and also also to Nevada Humanities. This is just awesome. As a Nepali international student, getting to talk about Nepal, getting to talk about the things I love. It's amazing. Outside of a school setting, I think I've always wanted to do more of public, um, you know, engagement, and this was such a golden opportunity, and I'm really grateful. I also want to give a big shout out to people in the chat for asking me questions. Thank you, Kyle, for chiming in and for joining. Thank you, Dom, as always. Like, I hope this was the good stuff. I also want to give a huge shout out to Alpha, my wife, for always supporting me. And my family back home. I hope you can watch this video. My grandpa, grandma, and my other relatives back in Nepal, my in-laws. I also want to give a huge shout out to two friends group that I have. Number one is Pagliacci's and Some Other Clowns, which is now renamed to Dr. Bear and the Pagliaccis. And this group comprises of my old bandmates. Like we had a short-lived band here. Dr. Kurt Bear. I'm gonna give a shout out to the other member who is Ben Danner and also Hunter Dukes. So these guys are just awesome. They helped me, continue my music. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Coffee Squad, which comprises of Esgi, Adrienne, Ty, Joe, and of course Kyle. This group came up after like we were going to colloquiums, and before each colloquium we'd go to this coffee shop and grab like coffee, most of the time cold brew, and walk into the colloquium hall like cool kids. So I really want to thank these friends for always being there, for all their support. And to anybody and everybody who's going to be watching this after the show is over and this is recorded and put up on YouTube and on Twitch, thank you so much.
Oh, Suyash is so nice, and we have many emotes of gratitude and appreciation in chat, which is great. So thank you, everyone. Um, Okay, I am going to just say sort of our usual closeout, which is again, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. Suyash, I would love to have you back on again in the future if you wouldn't mind. I think there are so many more dishes we can make and so many great conversations we can have. I mentioned this earlier, but so next Tuesday, May 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific, we're going to be joined by ethnomusicologist Dr. Tamara Turner. And I'm going to play a little bit of their music rhythm game, Melatonin. And Tamara is going to chat with us about music and trance, healing, ritual, and also she's going to lead us in some self care exercises at the end of the stream. I don't know if the ethnomusicologists in chat or if you have heard of her and her research, but she does really phenomenal work. She's gotten a lot of awards and just really, really great person. So I'm really looking forward to that. Also, she's very new to the world of gaming, so it's just fun to show her a little bit more about video games today. Um, don't forget, you can always learn more about our upcoming Nevada Humanities programs on our website. And I'm super excited. I think in June and July, I'm going to start streaming with more State Humanities Council staff, folklorists, Center for the Book People, just sort of expanding the network so people who are watching from other states other than Nevada can learn about the work happening in their state, but also so we can learn more about the good work that we're all doing with humanities in the US. And of course, I think we have Hey Dom 4K from chat, who is the state folklorist of Florida. Very excited to work with him very soon. Dom, I have to send you an email, but super excited and I can't wait to stream with you and tell everyone about your work. So thank you again so much, everyone, for being with us today. Let's end chat. Suyash, I know it's getting late for you. You are 3 hours, no, well, you're technically 2 hours ahead of me. So I will let you have dinner. I'm sure you and Alpha are probably very hungry.
Yeah, thank you so much. And once again, thanks everyone. And I'd love to connect at some level with everybody who's asked such amazing questions. And yeah,
Yes.
and thanks again, and thank you, Kathleen, and Nevada Humanities again.
Okay, don't forget, if you make if you make the recipe, tag us or email me and let us know what you think. We want to see and we want to know about your sensorial ethnography.
Yeah. And folks, reach out to me at PH Dumplings on Instagram. That's where I'm like the fastest. But also, you can find me at Indiana University Bloomington's Folklore Ethnomusicology programs website. Just type my name and you'll find me there.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Goodbye.
Bye.